Well, look at this sign I just found in the centre of Christchurch. Not sure what street I'm in, close to Armour Street. Heading towards the Port Hills, or Cashmere Hills. This sign put up by, well, he used to call himself Dr. Duncan Webb, but he's not saying he's a doctor anymore. Doctor of Lies, maybe. We've extended our fuel tax cut, reduced road user charges, half-price public transport until January 2023. Very interesting. Have a look at this pile of stuff here. Have a look at this. I picked this up today on the main road coming into Christchurch at Saltwater Creek. These bits of rock are actually asphalt blown out of the road by the big trucks driving across it and thrown across the whole road to the other side and in the grass on the other side. Now, I talked to somebody this morning and they said that they were driving down that road and they were actually running over these lumps of rock and stuff as well. So we've got imported bitumen at the moment causing potholes. We used to make the bitumen at Marsden Point Oil Refinery. So what do you want? Do you want to import poor quality or use New Zealand high quality at third the price? Yes, a third of the price for our for our New Zealand bitumen compared to what was coming in from overseas now. And my other sign here says no fuel, no food. No fuel, there'll be no farmings. Stop demolition of Marsden Point Oil Refinery. So this is what the Labor government's done, but National and ACT, all of them are not doing anything about stopping it from happening. We are now totally reliant on fuel coming in from overseas. Originally we had 35 tankers of crude coming into New Zealand, which was processed at Marsden Point. Over 70% of New Zealand's fuel was produced here in New Zealand and shipped around New Zealand in 2 small tankers. Now we've got 175 of these small tankers coming to New Zealand with our fuel on board. What's the cost of that? The cost of that is why we've got fuel cuts and reduced road user charges. The LTSA has stated in a document or in a newspaper article I saw recently that up to a month or so ago, the cost of reducing the fuel tax and reducing the road user charges has cost them $1 billion. By January 2023, it would have cost the LTSA $2 billion. Marsden Point capital value is only $500 million. I bought some shares recently and discovered that the capital value of Marsden Point is $500 million and one of New Zealand's most strategic pieces of infrastructure. How does everybody travel around here? How many people are driving electric cars? How many people are driving around in a hydrogen-powered vehicle? Not many, very few. So, yeah, I'm around Christchurch for a few days. I've got a couple of vintage machinery rallies to go to. So we need to get this word out. And I'm not going away. I've got my loud halo here. I'm going to be around tomorrow. There's going to be a bit of a protest outside the courthouse for Hannah and Calvin Alps. So I'll carry on. I've got my loud halo here. You'll hear me in the background. Okay, people. What do you know about Marsden Point Oil Refinery? Do you know where it is even? It's up in Whangarei. It's where New Zealand used to make its own fuel. We used to import 35 tankers of crude oil and made some of the best fuel in the world. Now it's all totally imported. We are now totally reliant on ships coming here with the finished product. If that finished product is contaminated in any way, or one of those tankers doesn't turn up, we have a major problem, New Zealand, because what will happen is the farmers won't be able to farm, won't be able to afford to farm, and the transport industry won't be able to afford to cart your goods around, your food, your business, whatever your business does requiring transport, won't happen. Now the government told me, no, we can't do anything about it. It's a private business. We've got no jurisdiction over them. Well, there's an organisation that the government belongs to, a worldwide organisation called the IEA, the International Energy Agency. And under that agency, we're supposed to guarantee 90 days of fuel supply in this country. 90 days from the previous year is what they're supposed to have at any one time in New Zealand. Our fuel is now all on tankers coming here on the high sea, taking anywhere between 18, and one tanker I've been tracking took 38 days to get here. Not 18, but 38 days. We've got a few tankers popping backwards and forwards from Australia. They take about 6 days. We've got 2 LPG tankers that come in weekly to supply the South Island with LPG, even though we've got LPG in New Zealand. There's more oil around New Zealand than what's in the North Sea, and it's 40 million years younger than the rest of the world, so it hardly needs to be processed to actually get it to operate a vehicle. I know some people that have drilled it and got it out of the ground and actually run their diesel tractors on it, but the government wanted too much tax for them to go to the next level and set up their own little refining system. They do that in America. Americans drill a hole somewhere and they put in a satellite refining plant, and they can start running their vehicles off their own oil in their own backyard, in their own state. That's the beauty of America. They get things done. Unlike this great country where we used to get things done, because back in 1962 when they started the plan to build Marsden Point, it only took them 2 years. 2 years to actually get it up and running and operating, making fuel for New Zealand. It was built back in 1962, opened in 1964 to give us fuel security. Yes, fuel security. That's what it was built for 58 years ago. Or 60 years ago, and opened 58 years ago. Because they could see that back then there was a threat to New Zealand having only totally imported fuel. Now we're at a situation in the world 58 years, 60 years on, and we're at a more critical point of fuel security than we've ever been in. If something goes off between China and Taiwan, we will have no fuel. Those tankers will stop coming to New Zealand. We do not have an operating oil refinery anymore because Channel Infrastructure, the ones that took over New Zealand refining, and April Fool's Day and closed it down, spent the next month decommissioning it. And more recently they've cut cables that control it. When they were decommissioning it, which they quite often do a deep clean on it every 4 years, 5 years, they do what they call a strip down and check out what's wrong with it and refurbish the catalyst and put that back into it and get it operating again. But there's at least 4 or 6 of these large castings off the end of the heat exchangers. They've disappeared from where they were stored. I don't know where they've gone, if they've gone to scrap or not, but if they have, it's going to cost us a few $100,000 to get them made again. We could be buying them for $600 a tonne. Maybe $3,000 would have bought them. That's how stupid your government is. But it's not just Labour, it's National, ACT, the whole lot of them. None of them are stepping up and saying, hey, this is a major infrastructure we can't afford to lose. Nobody seems to be listening in New Zealand. The media don't want to talk about it. They're too busy worrying about pandemics and climate change. But I tell you, the next big threat to New Zealand is fuel crisis. The other thing is, I've got some rocks here on the ground. You'd think they're rocks. But they're actually pieces of road. Pieces of the main highway north of Christchurch at a place called Stillwater. I came across this morning where downers were filling up a pothole. And I was amazed to find out what I found. They were called there in an emergency to fill this pothole in. These rocks I've got here, these bits of bitumen, quite large, as big as my hand, were thrown across the road, across the whole lane on the other side of the road, ended up on the road, on the side of the road and in the long grass. So they'd gone, I don't know, 20 or 30 metres at least. Thank you very much. So, if any of those rocks had hit a car, somebody could have been easily killed with one of those rocks. And that's in a main highway. They've got some speed restrictions signed there, 70k. Those big trucks are not going to slow down to 70k. They'll just pound on through there at 100k. That's why the road's falling to bits. Plus the bitumen they're using now has been imported from overseas. Instead of being made at Marsden Point for the last 2 years, it's been imported. All that time the roads that have been built and repaired have been using this poor grade bitumen that just falls apart. And guess what? It's poor quality and it's costing 3 times the price of the New Zealand Marsden Point made bitumen. We could have doubled our price, still been a third cheaper, and be supplying quality product. Just like the fuel that come out of Marsden Point. Unlike a shipment of jet fuel that arrived a few months ago, so contaminated it blocked all the filters as they unloaded at Marsden Point, and then blocked the filters again as they pumped it through to Auckland Airport. Would you like to be flying a jet plane in New Zealand that's got contaminated fuel in it? I certainly wouldn't. I'm quite happy driving along the road. That's bad enough with the potholes. But nobody really cares, do they? Nobody cares whatsoever. But I tell you what, when there's no food because we've got a shortage of fuel, then you'll start worrying. Then you'll start being concerned. Because without fuel, our farmers can't farm. I come from the North Island, well, I'm South Islander, but I've been up the North Island the last 2 years. And my farming friends in Pukekohe that grow vegetables are getting to the point where it's uneconomical to grow vegetables with the price of diesel. And if it goes much higher, and road transport can't afford to shift their stuff around economically, those farmers will stop growing food. Then you will run out in your supermarket. That's what's going to happen, New Zealand. You need to wake up. We need our fuel security. We need Marsden Point operating again. I bought some shares a couple of months ago just so I could get into the organisation. And I've been talking to some of the older shareholders that have been in the game since it started. Their shares were worth $40 back then. They still are worth $40, but they set up a new share split a number of years later. Then they dropped down to $6.40. Now they're $1.40, my shares are at the moment, so I've made a wee bit on them. Our oil refinery should be making good money. It makes the best product. We're one of 25 top oil refineries in New Zealand. Well, we were until the government allowed it to close down because they didn't think they were responsible enough to keep it going. They will change like they've changed over the COVID and the mandates. They will be forced to make this refinery start again, and it's going to cost you, the taxpayer, to get it going again. Just like every time there's been an upgrade, it's been the taxpayers' money that's paid for it. The oil companies have paid it back, but it's you that fill your tank that's actually paying for it, not the fuel companies. They just profiteer out of it. Mobil, BP, there was a few other companies originally when it first set up, about 5 of them. But now we've just got Mobil, BP and Z, which has been taken over by Ampol Australia. Now, Australia used to have 8 oil refineries. They're down to 2 now for a population of 25 million people. When there's a shortage of fuel in the world because of a war breaking out between China and Taiwan, even if they don't really get serious and it starts to slow things down, our fuel will be going somewhere else. We're only 5 million people. A tanker load, at one stage, they were offered $3 million and it disappeared from where it was going. Never got to its destination. It's taking anywhere between 18 days, and I've counted one at 38 days to get here to New Zealand. A whole month to get a tanker from Asia to New Zealand. We used to have 35 crude oil tankers coming to New Zealand with crude oil, which was made into a lot more products than just fuel. They used to get CO2, the big evil product they talk about that's going to kill us. They used to extract the CO2 out of this processing system. That CO2 was used for frozen food to make it sterile, so it get rid of the bugs like Tegel chicken. It was used in glass houses to make plants grow better and get better production. It was also used by the engineers in MIG welding plants. They use CO2 to stop the contaminating the weld. The other byproduct they used to get was sulphur. So the sulphur wasn't going to the atmosphere, it was actually being stripped out, and the granular stuff was used by farmers in their fertiliser. Don't really like chemical fertilisers, but at least it was taking it out of the atmosphere, out of the fuel, and using it. The other byproduct was bitumen. We used to make really good bitumen in New Zealand, but now we've got shitty imported stuff that's 3 times the price, and all we were getting is potholes. I've got some bits of rock here, you think they're rock, but they're actually pieces of asphalt that flew out of the road north of Christchurch in the last couple of days, and downers were there filling it in. They didn't do a very good job, and within a week they'll be back there doing it again. Now those bits of rock flew right across the road from one side to the other, where people are doing 100k an hour. Supposed to be doing 70, but I say they'll be doing 100. Those big trucks don't slow down for much. Those bits of rock, bigger than my hand, were thrown right across the road, across the other lane, and ended up on the side of the road in the grass. Some of them are on the road. So one of those rocks hitting somebody's windscreen could have killed somebody. Could have killed your child. Could have killed your mother, your father, or your grandparents travelling on that road into Christchurch from Amberley at Saltwater Creek. How many other roads leading into Christchurch have got serious potholes like that? We're having a public inquiry shortly about it, and this sign here from Mr. Webb states that we're extending our fuel tax cut, reduced road user charges, half-price public transport until January 2023. Do you know how much that's costing you taxpayers? $2 billion. Because the LTSA is not getting that road tax or that fuel tax to repair your roads or build new ones. No, it's coming out of the tax take. It's coming out of your education and your health tax take. Wake up, New Zealand. We need to get this oil refinery back in the hands of the people of New Zealand and operating ASAP. Well, I think I've said enough. I'll turn off now and see if I can talk to some people. Nobody's really interested. It's the big cities, they're all too busy driving down the road trying to make their dollars. But they'll wake up when there's no food because the farmers out in the country can't supply it. Catch us later, bye.